So, Shaykh al-Kareem, a generic question. For the average layperson, what makes a contract Islamic and not? What is Islamic finance in a nutshell? 5-minute crash course. What is the average person supposed to know about the concept of Islamic finance?
Several things actually we take into consideration to consider any contract or any project or any agreement as an Islamic one. Number one, we consider the outcome results or the final product of this engagement. What are we trying to produce? Is it something acceptable within like the values of the Muslim community? Does it contradict the ethics of the Muslim community? I always say permissibility overrides feasibility. Permissibility overrides feasibility, which means that even if a certain project is so profitable, as long as that project or that product is in a clear contradiction with the values of the Muslim community, it has to be banned. Anything related to haram that we all are aware of. And second of all, when there is an Islamic finance practice, everybody actually is involved to or expected to have the highest level of transparency and integrity. So there is nothing called like jahala or gharar. Everybody knows from day one who is contributing what and who is doing what. Who is providing the money, who is doing the labor work, who is doing the management, what if there is a profit, what if there is a loss, and so on and so forth. So no surprises as we go. No one can say, well, I didn't know that. No one told me that, I'm not responsible for the profit or for the loss. Number three, commoditization or asset-backed is another principle, which means that we have to make sure that in the same way that I'm benefiting myself in that project or that product, I'm benefiting the community at large. I have to make sure that I'm producing something tangible, something valuable. I'm adding some assets, some value to the community at large. So, for example, nowadays, the majority of those so-called financial instruments that people actually are trading in the stock market are not halal, okay? When it comes to futures and options and derivatives and CDS and CDO and you name it. The vast majority of those financial instruments actually are not permissible because they are not backed up by any commodity or merchandise or service that really, benefits the community. It goes without saying that in the Islamic finance practice, there should be ban of interest. You cannot borrow money with interest. You cannot lend money with interest. You cannot participate or facilitate any interest-bearing transaction. If all these different, I would say, standards are taken into consideration, then we can confidently call this project or this product an Islamic one. Something just really quickly, if the most important characteristic of the Islamic finance is the ban of interest or riba, well, riba was prohibited in Judaism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, He said, وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَا وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ. Okay, He was criticizing certain Jewish community at a certain time by saying they used to transact and deal with interest while they were prohibited from doing so. Okay, well, riba was prohibited in Christianity as well. Okay, it is prohibited in Islam. So if you feel more comfortable, by the way, calling the system that we are promoting a Jewish finance system or a Christian finance system or divine finance system or Islamic finance system, you are absolutely correct.
So to summarize, this is a very key points, and the summary is meant for my benefit and inshallah the reminder for the people listening. First and foremost, Islamic ethics, honesty, openness. Secondly, no ambiguity. We don't like vague or uncertain issues. We want things to be known and concrete. Minimal ambiguity. Thirdly, asset-backed. We need something that is producing something of value, something that is solid, something that is tangible, in contrast to things that are not backed with actual commodities such as futures and options. Those types of transactions would not be allowed because there's no tangible backing to what you're buying or selling. And then obviously the issue of interest or riba. So these are some of the aspects that our Sheikh mentioned. But Sheikh, the question that follows then, this is an ideal world. And perhaps if me and Mustafa have a financial contract between the two of us, I can make sure that I follow Islamic law between myself and my Muslim brother. But that does not and cannot take place in the majority of our transactions that we do with corporations, our bank, leasing of the car, taking any type of, even when we have to take insurance or all of these types of things here. And we all know that, most of our scholars allow certain transactions, the default of which might technically not be allowed, but because of the overwhelming need, because of the necessity, such as health insurance, the fatwa, or the car insurance, the fatwa goes that it is permissible. So before we get to insurance, my second question, how much haram before the actual contract becomes haram? I.e., a little bit of haram, try to be very, very simplistic here, seems to be overlooked. We all have bank accounts, even though technically we should not be dealing with banks, because banks are the essence of riba. But all of us have bank accounts. Almost all of us have credit cards, even though technically we should not have credit cards, because credit cards, the condition that you sign on is that you're going to be paying an interest if you don't pay on time. And I can go on and on over all these examples that you're aware of. So before we get to the technicalities of which, which insurance is allowed, etc., the second question is, some people are very simplistic minded and they say, oh, because this one clause is haram, the entire contract is haram. And obviously no fatwa council operates this way. No actual faqih that is living in the real world and giving fatwas for the people has this notion of complete black and white. So is there a percentage? How do you judge between little bit of haram versus moderate haram versus haram? How do we navigate this minefield?
Let me come with a very simple classification. If a certain transaction or deal or business or contract does not have any glitches or any violations, well, that contract or that agreement should be halal by default with no restriction. Does that make sense? Okay. What if that agreement or business or contract does have certain amount of violations or glitches? In this case, from a pure fiqh perspective, we have to have sufficient amount of hajj or need to permit that particular transaction or that particular contract. Now, between glitches free, halal by default, all the way until you reach to a contract or agreement that is explicitly prohibited. For example, borrowing money with interest. Okay, so we started with glitch free, halal by default, and then some glitches and violations that has to be proven in order for that agreement or deal or contract to be permitted as needed for the hajj, all the way until you reach to an agreement or a deal that is explicitly prohibited, right? In this case, we have to find a darura or necessity to permit it, right? So halal by default, halal as needed, haram that could not be permitted unless there is a necessity. Now let's take some of the examples that Sheikh Yasser mentioned here. Holding credit card. Holding credit card is not a pure halal option, because there is a clause that in case of using your credit card for cash withdrawal, in case you did not pay your monthly statement in full or before the due date, you subject yourself to paying interest. Is that correct? Well, that particular clause does not convert the whole deal to be explicitly haram, because riba in this very particular case is avoidable. What if I did not use my credit card for cash withdrawal? What if I always pay the monthly statement in full before the due date? How much riba I'll be paying? Zero. Is that correct? As opposed to going to Bank of America, as they call it, Bank of America or Chase or Wells Fargo, and applying for a loan. When you apply for a loan for a certain APR, annual percentage rate, that is the explicit, straightforward haram transaction. Unless you show a case that there is a necessity, then borrowing money with interest actually would be prohibited. The Sheikh mentioned open a bank account. Well, we need to ask here, is it a checking account or a saving account? Well, saving account actually is a none but interest bearing loan. You give your money to the bank by the FDIC, the principal is guaranteed and the return on top of the principal is guaranteed. As if you are, the Islamic interpretation of what's going on is that you are lending your money to the bank. So you are not supposed to open a saving account. What is the alternative? That's completely different discussion. I don't want to take too much of your time.
So, Shaykhana, you mentioned that one has to weigh the hajat, that which is not necessarily life and death, which is darura, but a need, with the level of haram. So you weigh the need for this contract with the level of haram. Now, this is where obviously subjectivity comes in, right? And this is where so many different fatwas and fiqh councils have completely contradictory positions, even though they are approaching it with the same equation, the same concept, the same paradigm. We weigh the amount of haram with the hajat. And using the same paradigm, two different ulama about the same scenario could give two different fatwas. So the classic example, which everybody asks all the time, mortgages. This is the classic example that it affects every single one of us. That should we go out of our way to try to find what is called an Islamic mortgage, which is another question altogether, is even Islamic or not? Let's not even go there today. Or should we just follow the position of so many councils, the European Council, Sheikh Qardawi, the council I'm a part of, the Fiqh Council of North America, which basically uses the exact same principle, and that is haja versus element of haram, and says the haja for a house is so great that in this case, the element of haram will be overlooked. Not that it is halal intrinsically, but when you weigh the evil and the good, the good in this case, the need to live a dignified life and to pass it on to your children outweighs the harm. So how then do we go about assessing the haja versus the haram? And then obviously, what is your personal opinion about this whole issue of mortgages?
Let me give you the position actually of my fiqh council, or the one that I represent, which is AMJAD, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. I'll give you like a very practical example. Borrowing money with interest for mortgaging a house, as opposed to borrowing money with interest for higher education purposes. Let's just hypothetically say that someone could not find sufficient grants or financial aid or the kind of financial support, and even the subsidized loans are not available, or available but insufficient, or he does not qualify for it. He or she reached to a point where he either borrows money with interest to proceed with that program, with that study, or otherwise he will be dropped from the program. So there is no way out other than borrow money with interest. Now this is one example. Other example, mortgaging a house. When it comes to mortgaging a house, I mean, this is our position. The Sheikh might have different opinion. The way that we look at it is that if you do not have halal alternative, or halal enough, if you wish, alternative, you can rent a house. So the alternative actually is there. But if you reach to a point where you cannot find any source of funding to proceed with your higher education, whether MD or PhD or master's or bachelor's or even post, doctoral degree, right? You cannot, proceed without borrowing money with interest. Now, there is a definition of ad-darura that is like not the mainstream, definition. It goes in Arabic, ما يلحق المكلف ضرر بتركه ولا يقوم غيره مقامه. الضرورة is an irreplaceable matter, where lacking it causes harm to the Muslim. If you do not borrow money for purchasing a house, well, you can rent. I mean, you will not be, you will not be homeless. I mean, you can manage somewhere, somehow to rent a house or apartment and just live with your family members. But if you do not have money to borrow, to pay the tuition fees, again, providing that there is no other alternative, you will be out. So the alternative actually is not there. The standard or the criteria here, the availability of alternative. You cannot borrow money in a halal way or finance for a house, well, you go ahead and just rent a house. You cannot borrow money for higher education, you can borrow money with interest and you will be exempted from the default rule of haram. So our official position that borrowing money or taking unsubsidized loan for higher education purposes for Muslims living in the USA is permissible as a kind of dispensation or exemption from the default rule. So that is the position or the way that we differentiate between the haja and darura. To keep it very simple, the availability of alternative. Now,
So, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair, when I'm having this discussion, astaghfirullah, I'm not meaning to, push back at all, but just for education purposes, so that we are aware why this diversity exists. So, hear me, Shaykhana, I am a student in front of you. So, understand, Shaykhana, that when you're saying that when there's no alternative, then it becomes permissible, you understand that that is contested by other people. So, for example, you're saying, and of course, Amja is near and dear to me. I participate every year, second year. I love every single person there. And the Fiqh Council, which I'm a part of, is of course near and dear to me. The two councils are slightly different in their methodologies and their fatwas. And this, what our Shaykh has said, is one of the classic examples. And I'm bringing this up intentionally so that you see, despite the fact I love our Shaykh immensely, our council politely disagrees with Amja's fatwa on this issue. How so? Because Amja is saying, with utmost love and respect to them, they are saying a student loan is halal, but a mortgage is not. And they say the student loan doesn't have an alternative. But with utmost love and respect, we say it's not wajib to be a doctor. If you want to be consistent, then khalas, take a minimum wage job or something, $10 an hour, and don't take the student loan. And you're still going to eke out an existence. You're not going to starve on the street. But the fact that there is an understanding that we don't want this for the ummah. We don't want them. Why should the ummah have to? It's literally, we need civilizational strength. So the Fifth Council not only says you may take a student loan, but it also says you may take the house loan as well. Because this is a haja. This is a benefit to the ummah. It's not wanting to get rich. It is a matter of securing a legacy for yourself and your family. Have the right intention and say that, look, I want to transfer down and make my children, inshallah, better than I am. And this is, inshallah, overall permissible. But still, respectful back and forth so that you see why. Once again, so that you are clear, the equation is the same. The paradigm is the same. The template is the same. In the application, Amja went one way, the Fiqh Council went slightly different. We both overlap. We allow student loans. We both overlap. But the one also allows a house because with conditions, obviously. The same Qardawi conditions, nothing new. The same Qardawi conditions. And the other says, no, they think it's not a haja. And I respect Amja's opinion. And I politely have the Fiqh Council that I would give if somebody were to ask me, inshallah. Now we get to the other issue, Shaykhana. This is going to be far more back and forth, inshallah. Or maybe not. I don't know your opinion. Let's find out. Another classical controversy, insurance. So, firstly, can you explain why is insurance problematic according to the dominant opinion? Why is it problematic? Then secondly, what types of insurance then would be haja versus darura versus not allowed? So what is your analysis of insurance as a whole? Bismillah.
Well, there is an official position of Amja, okay, in one way, and there is a personal opinion of B. Okay, that's completely different from Amja position. So let me start with the official position of Amja. We go with the mainstream fatwa that any kind of government-based or mutual-based insurance is halal by default because the government is not looking forward to make a profit, and the mutual, insurance, there is no contradiction. There is no like shareholders as opposed to policy holders. All the proceeding will be paid back to the shareholders who are by default the account holders. Only when it comes to stock-based companies, this is again, I'm just narrating the mainstream fatwa, right? They said that you have in the insurance company, you have two different bodies. There is the shareholders as opposed to the account holders. And always there is a conflict of interest between the two. So any kind of commercial or stock-based structure company, like an insurance company, is haram by default because of the well, in the past they used to say that there is a riba, like you pay less and you get more, and then they changed their mind later and they said no, there is no riba, but there is an extreme gharar. You just keep paying premium to the car insurance, for example, and you keep driving safely for years and years without getting any single penny as a compensation or payback from the insurance company. So because of the excessive gharar, according to the mainstream fatwa, insurance is not allowed. Honestly, on a personal level, I was with the mainstream fatwa all the way until maybe 2017, 2018. And then out of curiosity, I went back to the work of Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa rahmatullahi alayhi. He's a Hanafi Syrian scholar, passed away I think 30 plus years ago rahmatullahi alayhi. So I went back and read that book, okay, word by word, sentence by sentence, twice. And I found out that the Sheikh was, subhanAllah, like way ahead of other scholars in analyzing and understanding the concept of insurance. Long story short, he made a very simple argument. I'm going to use some like American examples. Okay, he says, like the main of his argument, the Social Security Administration is telling you, if you pay me $200 a month deducted from your paycheck, and something happened to you, rest in peace, donatory, I'm gonna pay your wife and your kids such and such amount within certain criteria. Life insurance company is telling you, listen, if you pay me $200 a month and something happened to you, rest in peace, donatory, I'm gonna pay your family members a what? Check of $500,000 or $1 million. He said, what is the difference? This is a bilateral agreement, two-sided commitment, premium from your end that has to be paid, and insurance compensation or insurance benefit from the other side. There is no benevolence, there is no ta'awun, there is no charity, there is no favor. No one actually is doing you a favor. By the law of the land, if you pay your premium, you are entitled, or your family members upon your death are entitled to a certain compensation. What is the difference between life insurance and Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid in the United States? So he concluded that you either permit everything or you prohibit everything. Do not tell me that, the life insurance company actually invests their money in a haram way. Well, can you prove to me that the Social Security is investing, the extra money or the proceeding in a halal way, or the Medicare or Medicaid? The answer is absolutely no. This is from one side. From the other side, the essence of the agreement is the premium versus the insurance compensation. Anything else actually is irrelevant. Anything else is out of concern. Okay, the agreement is the bilateral agreement. Do you pay a premium every month? If the answer is yes, then you are eligible for a certain compensation whenever a certain unfortunate incident happens. So based on this analysis, actually, I officially changed my mind from going with the mainstream fatwa by saying I do believe that insurance as a concept is halal. Life insurance is halal as well. And even Sheikh, if you want to apply the well-known qaida, which is al-ghurm bil-ghurm, like a profit follows liability. Well, the insurance company actually is taking a huge liability of committing itself to paying your family members $1 million upon your death. And that liability and big, huge risk is sufficient enough to justify the premium that they take and they keep for themselves. Now, this does not mean that each and every single life insurance policy in the market is halal. I'm not saying so. Nowadays in the USA, there is a lot of sophistication and integration between investment from one side and insurance from the other side. The life insurance policy that you hold does actually have a certain dimension of investment. There is a lot of integration between the two. So for each and every single life insurance policy, I have to read it in full and find out how much insurance as opposed to how much investment. What kind of investment we are referring to? What are the options that you are choosing? For example, if you limit yourself, life insurance-wise, if you limit yourself to the minimum premium, right? Minimum premium, your family members will be entitled to what is called the insurance benefit, $1 million, for example. If you increase your premium a little bit, you will be eligible for something called cash advance. Cash advance means that the insurance company will be paying back to your family members all the premium that you have paid during your lifetime, in addition to the $1 million. And so far, to my knowledge, both options actually are okay. Now, there is a third option. If you want to upgrade it from now, you can even increase the premium more and more to receive the insurance benefit and the cash back or the cash advance, plus interest on the actual cash that you paid during your lifetime. I would suggest that the third option actually is not a halal one. So as a concept, I wholeheartedly believe that life insurance actually is halal. On a personal level, I do have my own life insurance, policy. But again, not every single policy available in the market is halal because of what I already explained.
So this is shocking news to me, Sheikh, mashallah. life insurance is halal is a fatwa that is not that common, and our Shaykh has given it. As he mentioned, the most prominent scholar who allowed it 50 years ago, his name is Shaykh Mustafa Az-Zarqa, and at the time he was the only scholar in the world of prominence that allowed it, the only scholar. And he had very strong pushback, and so he wrote a treatise in a book where he explained why he permitted it. And of course this book is available in Arabic and some articles about it in English. To this day, the majority of councils, including Amja, and believe it or not, in this case, even the fiqh council is more conservative than the Shaykh. So being conservative and liberal doesn't mean anything when it comes to fiqh. So here we have a classic example. Even the fiqh council as of yet has not given the fatwa that life insurance is halal. The perception is, I'm sorry to be stereotypical, the perception is Amja is more conservative than the fiqh council. There's an element of truth. Yet, the devil's in the details, the saying goes. Life insurance is a very, very contested issue, and the vast majority of fuqaha and councils do not permit it, including Amja, does not allow it as officially. But the Shaykh is saying, and of course Amja appreciates and allows individual members to have individual opinions, right? So the individual opinion is not ascribed to the organization. So very clearly the Shaykh said, make sure you do not misquote him, Amja's official position, the American Muslim Jurists Association. And as of yet, Fiqh Council, however, you should be aware the Fiqh Council is debating this issue, and I don't know where it's going to head. As of yet, even the Fiqh Council, both of them have said life insurance is not allowed. However, Dr. Ma'an al-Qula is an expert, and he is saying that it is permissible with these conditions. And this goes to show you this ambiguity and diversity exists. Two more questions, we'll call it a day, inshallah. Second to last question. Very soon, a fatwa will be released by the Fiqh Council that allows zakat, or I should be more precise, a portion of one's zakat, not all of it, to be utilized for political lobbying for the sake of protecting the ummah. Political lobbying, just for example, Gaza. For example, what is happening now in Gaza. If we come across a politician that wants, and his promise, and it seems clear from his, and again, only Allah knows ilm al-ghaib, it seems clear he wants to try his best to stop Gaza, the genocide, I should say. Very soon, it's not actually out yet, but we're drafting it, we're literally drafting it now, that we're going to allow a portion of your zakah, not all of it, a portion of your zakah to go to political campaigns in order to protect the interests of the ummah, not in order to protect your taxes of your house. No, in order to protect the interests of the ummah. And we have our evidences that the Shaykh is well aware of. So, Shaykhana, what do you think of this type of fatwa? And do you see zakat as something that we can use for communal benefit to protect the interests of the ummah?
Let's differentiate between the theory and the practice, or the fiqh ruling and the application of that fiqh ruling. Now, upon our discussion today, we said that if there is one of those 8 different categories where you can justify giving those, like that money for political lobbying, it should be under the category fi sabilillah, for the cause of Allah. Now, all the contemporary fiqh councils are unanimous that fi sabilillah does not necessarily mean the actual military jihad, any kind of effort to establish and to empower the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be interpreted as jihad, with the general, meaning of the term jihad, which is to struggle or to strive to establish, something good for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, since we are in agreement that fi sabilillah could be interpreted under this category, can you, theoretically speaking, can you give that money to a non-Muslim who is promising, to defend your agenda and to work hard to pass your agenda and to stop the genocide, in Gaza, for example? Theoretically speaking, based on this takhrij, I would say that is fine, that's acceptable. Now, it has to be taken case by case basis. I'm not saying that giving money under the category of fi sabilillah for political lobbying is permissible all the way down. I would say I would just limit myself to the theory by saying yes, right? But when it comes to tahqiq al-manat, when it comes to the implementation of that fatwa, I would rather refer to a fiqh council, either Fikna or Amja, to come up with a group or like an official position that yes, in the USA in 2025, Muslims can designate certain part of their money under the category fi sabilillah to give to certain non-Muslim politicians or candidates. That would be fine as long as it is declared by a fiqh council. As of me, I would just rather limit myself to the theory and not to give an official fatwa. I do not allow anyone to give money to like political lobbying purposes, because that's something contemporary, needs a collective fatwa, not individual fatwa.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. And then Sheikh, just for the record, we're having a conversation today, so I want to have a public quick discussion and your opinion. So the Sheikh and I have been going back and forth for I think 15 years or more about the issue of calculations and moon sighting, as all of us do all the time. So I wanted to ask directly the Sheikh in front of everybody now, what is his view on this very contentious issue that every single masjid in North America is so debating and contentious. The Sheikh's position 15 years ago used to be no calculations. So I wanted to hear if there's any been update and what is the latest, inshallah.
Is this Islamic finance, Sheikh?
No, not finance, just for the sake of the community.
Okay.
But it helps us preserve finance by booking only one hall, but that's a separate issue.
Briefly, if you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته. Okay, start fasting based on the sighting of the moon and break your fast and celebrate it based on the fasting of the moon. What did he say after that? He said, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, if you are unable to see it, فَأَتِمُّوا عِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ 30 يوما. Then you should continue fasting 30 days of Sha'ban. My question here, if we continue fasting 30 days of Sha'ban, do we still have to go out and just watch the moon? The answer is absolutely no. Why? Because you are 100% positive that the month of Sha'ban is over. This actually makes it clear that sighting the moon is a means and not a goal by itself. Prophet ﷺ wants to tell us, once you are positive that the month of Sha'ban is over, then you go ahead and start the month of Ramadan. That's one hadith. The other hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ says, إذا أقبل الليل منها هنا وأدبر النهار منها هنا فقد أفطر الصائم. Okay, when the night comes from this side and the day light goes away from that side, then a fasting person should break his fast. Did any of the fuqaha from any of the madhahib say that, okay, before you break your fast, you have to go and to watch the sunset to break your fast? Is it mentioned by any of the fiqh books? My answer actually, to my knowledge, is no. Right? What does that indicate? Indicates once you are positive that the daytime is over, you just break your fast. Yeah, you just break your fast. He didn't say you're gonna go ahead and just check the sunset. Do not break your fast until you see it. He said, إذا أقبل الليل, when the night comes from this this side and the day goes away from that side, then a fasting person actually should break his fast. طيب, the third hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّا أُمَّةٌ أُمِّيَّةٌ لَا نَقْرَأُ وَلَا نَحْسِبُ. We are absolutely an illiterate nation. We do not write, we do not calculate. الشهر هكذا وهكذا. The month, meaning the lunar month, is either 30 days or 29 days. I kept actually, scratching my head, asking myself a question. Why he said alayhi salatu wasalam in the beginning, إِنَّا أُمَّةٌ أُمِّيَّةٌ لَا نَقْرَأُ وَلَا نَحْسِبُ. We are illiterate ummah. We do not calculate, we do not write. The shahr, the moon, should be either 30 or 29 days. And then I found that connection, as if he is telling us, within the given circumstances, within the level of technology, because you are so illiterate, we just go with either 30 days or 29 days, which indicates clearly, indirectly, whenever you reach to a level of technology where you can determine the beginning and the end of the month, okay, by calculation, go for it. Again, to make it clear that sighting the moon is not a goal, it is a means by itself. Maybe one or two evidences just briefly. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Did not you see what your Lord has done with Ashab al-Fil, like Abrahat al-Ashram when he came to destroy the Kaaba? Is it possible for Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, who was born on Aam al-Fil, to watch with his actual naked eyes what happened with Abrahat al-Ashram? Of course not. So alam tara means alam ta'lam. When he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi'ad, did not you see? I mean, that's the literal translation. Did not you see what your Lord has done with Ad? Where is Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and Ad? You are talking about hundreds of years. So alam tara means alam ta'lam. Arabic language is so rich and so deep. So not every single tara, okay, or ru'ya means like, the actual sighting. Okay, it could mean the confirmation of the news, the acknowledgement of something. So applying this concept, if you go back to the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ says, صُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ وَأَفْطِرُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ, he wants to say, okay, start your fasting based on the acknowledgement of the beginning of the month within whatever means that you have. Once you are positive that the month of Sha'ban is over and the month of Ramadan starts, then you start fasting. Once the month of Ramadan actually is over, then you have to break your fast. And based on that actually, and based on the fact that calculation actually is a fixed and absolute, right? While the moon sighting is a probable one. Like people might do the right sighting and might do the wrong sighting. They might see the moon in a different direction. They might see like another planet thinking that this is if you give them the benefit of the doubt. So how can you allow the probable way, okay, make it like overriding the absolute? Well, the absolute one actually is 100% accurate. And every single day we depend on calculation when it comes to as-salawatul khams, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha. Is that correct? We determine the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse based on calculation. But when it comes to moon sighting at the beginning of the month of Ramadan, we say no, we have to stop and just go out and watch the moon. That's actually unacceptable. We have to take advantage of the technology and benefit, from it, and make sure that we utilize that technology, for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make the life of the Muslim Ummah easy. So my official position actually is that I do believe wholeheartedly that calculation is a very authentic way of determining the beginning and the end of the month. However, I'm always with the unity of the community. I will never allow two different neighboring masajid in the same locality, in the same town. One of them is praying Tarawih and the other one is celebrating Eid. See? Whether it is calculation, and by the way, even when it comes to the official position of MJ, we said that Muslims in every single city have to go with the vast majority of the Muslim community, even if it is calculation.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah, Shaykh, it's nice to hear from you directly that calculations is the more authentic method. But whatever the position might be, we go with the majority. With one caveat, Shaykh, and with utmost respect, I would say that yes, you go with the majority as the default position of the people, but those that are in charge, they need to steer the community in a wise manner. And on a personal level, when I came to this community 6 years ago, as you're all aware, there was no issue of calculations. You were doing the moon sighting. And I felt very strongly this is not healthy for the ummah and for our next generation. And that policy was changed. And after we changed, the majority of masajid of Dallas followed suit. Right now, as we stand, and we did a survey and census this year, the majority of masajid of Dallas are following calculations. That was not the case when I came to the city 6 years ago. So there's a difference between the people of the masjid and the people in charge of the masjid. The people of the masjid follow their local masjid, and our neighboring masjid might have a different opinion. We respect them, and we tell the people of that masjid, follow your board, no problem. That's what I said when I was asked. But board to board and sheikh to sheikh, that's a different conversation. And we have the right to work behind the scenes, and some of us are working behind the scenes for the last 6 years. We have the right to work behind the scenes to bring about a super majority, and that is a different mechanism or reality than, the masses should follow the board and don't cause any confusion at all. No hatred, no animosity, no. But boards can work behind the scenes, and that is what is happening, inshallah.